Venus squared Pluto in 94. So he gets married just as Venus is conjuncting his Pluto. He marries for money and power, but he's not in love. He's not happy. He's confronted. He did something. It was practical. He had to do it, but it was very opportunistic. But I think she was in love, so he went with it. But he was. But within a year, the Venus would have hit the Pluto, and he wouldn't have been able to hide that he wasn't in love. He was confronted by it. So he might have been confronted by it. She's in love with him, and rather than lose it, they got into a menage a trois for 2 or 3 years with this other person being in there. But really, she, even though she had a bunch of kids, with 5 kids, I think she had kids with him, and brought them up. She paid for his career and covered him, but he was sleeping with the secretary. It's like, it was, there was a haunting relationship there. But you can see the harshness of the Venus hitting the Pluto and the challenges in life and how it turned around. This was a very good example. Otherwise, I wouldn't have necessarily brought it up. But so that was one insight. The other insights that I saw was this is a young Freud relationship. I found this, I was searching dates when they happened. So I'll pull this up to just show it, and then we'll go back to the chart so we won't have to stay with this for that long. Okay. They were, Freud and Jung, celebrating his birthday in 1906. Okay, but they went on fishing exhibits today. So they're fishing halibut off the coast of the Rhine in 1909. So they had adventures. They were doing things. It wasn't just a psychological studying thing. Okay, and then yeah. So this is again. They're relaxing with friends at a Turkish bath in 1907 at a retreat. And let me just keep going here. I just want to get then in 1908, they were in the States, and they take a break from their lecture tour to enjoy some Americans. They were playing pool, so they were getting off on being in America and having the freedom of America. But then they even went like a hobo to walk along the railroad tracks for a while to try and experience the hobo element. In 1908, traveling the rails. And in 1907, this is Freud and Jung with their girlfriends, not their wives. Okay, so this is around the time that Freud dismissed Jung's interest in religion and this as being unscientific. So he says the rejection embittered Jung towards his mentor. Carl Jung initiated a rumor that a romantic relationship may have developed between Freud and his sister-in-law, who had moved into his house, into his apartment, and he suggested that their affair resulted in a pregnancy and a subsequent abortion for Miss Bernice. So that's all they say about this scandal. I've heard of some members of this before, but that's why Freud decided he couldn't be around to end the relationship. But before they did that, they went on an Arctic exhibition up north, and when they went on the Arctic exhibition, 1 man and 3 dogs met their death during the endeavor. So it wasn't like that successful or happy venture. They pushed things, and somebody died. And then didn't copy over. This is just in OneNote, so it didn't copy it over. Then this is one of the last pictures of them together. They were in 1912. They were hunting. Freud liked to hunt, and Carl Jung didn't, and he killed this antelope, and they were taking a picture by it. You can see Jung isn't very happy, but it was eventually they just okay. So eventually Freud sent Jung a letter saying, we're going to end our relationship. Let's just end it here. And that's it. So it wasn't going anywhere. Anyways, the Venus hitting the Pluto just after the marriage said a lot. And then in 1909, where's 09 here? It squared the midheaven. These are all the times of going to the States and having these adventures. By 27, Venus is squaring Mars in 27. So, but all the time, Venus is going through 7th to 8th house. And in the 8th house, 1945, where are we here? 1945 it squared Mercury, and then it squared itself in 1948. And then it squared it conjuncted Jupiter in 53, and he died in 61, just as it went into Scorpio. So I didn't really go, but the point of the Venus Pluto was so dramatic that it was useful to point out, since we've been working on these charts all the way through. Okay, one last one. Okay, we're just going to look at Freud's. Freud's life went through with okay, it's the last one. Okay, here we go. So, I mean, they do connect to our life. We're seeing dramatic things happening while these things happen, because Venus is inwardly coming in as attracting these attachments to the natal chart. And the circumstances happen. The outer circumstances, the outer sensational side of it, the inside is what's being learned inside of this? What's the emotional development inside of this? So, everybody's got a light and dark side, you know, so we just haven't touched it. I love Freud, Jung's, and I love his work, so it was funny to run across these pieces of information about it, but it fits so well to what was going on, I couldn't not talk about it. Okay, with Freud, his Venus is in Aries, and his chart, his Venus also goes straight all the way through Aries. It's all the way straight, it doesn't go retrograde in his life. It goes through from the 6th house into the 7th, into the 8th, into the 9th, almost, but doesn't quite get to it, doesn't get up to his midheaven. Okay, so this is, okay, put down one more to get a bit more closer. So it goes up, it went over his, he's born in 56, so in 67, he's only 11, the Venus, it had gone over his Pluto very early years, in 63. So when he's 7, 8 years old, 6 years old, some real confronting thing happened to his emotions, some traumatic emotional thing would have happened. And then it went over his descendant, probably with parents, it went over to descendant by 67, so there he's only 11. By 72, 16, his Venus conjuncts his Sun, so he has strong emotional, I don't know if it's the love of his life or emotions, but he really had his values come in about relationships at that time. It's in Taurus. Venus is strong. It's moving through there. It goes on top of the Sun. By 76, he's 30, the 20, and it's on top of Uranus. He gets this unconventional thing going on. So I can't remember his marriage times and stuff like this, but he was married and stayed in the marriage a long time with the kids, never left it, and was very stable in that way, although he had his adventures outside, different worlds. Then the Venus went over his Mercury. Conjunct Uranus in 76, went over his Mercury in 82, and then went into Gemini. So that's the Venus. In Gemini, went into expressing emotions. He always saw any sexual problem was of sexual frustration or repression. So he's dealing with Mars as the repressive element, but really it was the discontent or satisfaction of Venus that he was interpreting as a repression of Mars. And he was dealing with Mars and Venus elements, and Freud was disagreeing with the Mars, thinking it was too severe, and that it could be more enjoyable. At the same time, Jung was not living well enough to be a good example of representing a moral or a good Venus. So, okay, well, it's a Taurus, so it'd be a good book, Venus and Mars of Freud. But by 1895, he didn't start meeting Jung till about 1900s, early 1900s, just around the time they got married, because Freud was the counselor for Jung's wife. Jung's wife would go get advice from Freud on how to deal with Jung. And throw another complication into the relationship. So maybe that was the Venus confrontation that came in, and maybe she was related to Freud more than to Jung, and he also felt threatened by it. There's a lot of layers of complication. Everybody's story is complicated. But in 1895, it conjunct his moon. By 1900, where are we here? 1900. It squared Neptune. So 1900 is the beginnings of trying to align with. It's not really for a few years yet that he gets to Freud, but he had some confusions around things at that point, hitting Neptune. It conjuncted Saturn in 2006. So as Venus conjuncted Saturn in 2006, he'd already been seeing, Jung had been a student for a number of years then, and they were traveling to the States, but he was feeling, his emotions was feeling repressed by being with Jung, because what he was studying, what he was working towards, Jung was not on site, and he was beginning to feel the separation and distinction of it, and this built up. And by 1911, it was squaring his Jupiter, where there was the misunderstandings between them. It just grew. And by in 2011, it squared the Mars as well. And I think this was the beginning of the end, because I think 2012 was the last time they even saw each other. So like it was all this whole period, his discontent of the Venus was coming up around that. But he had really built Jung up to be his protege. And when he got let down, it was one shock. He was trying to hold on and save it, but Jung was not fitting back into it. And I think so even with the two of them being out, and like, it's funny to see Freud with another woman in the 90s, because that was shocking to me, because it seems like Freud got maybe a little more licentious while he was with Jung, and they were traveling, did some stuff together, but he maintained his marriage really steadily the whole time. He never moved out anywhere else. I think so. I don't really know that story, but you can see the Venus going through the Saturn and going through the Mars. There were the depression, the fights, and the struggles that were going on, and then it just went on to. He carried on to his understanding. He kept his stuff going. His Venus went up to the 8th house and 9th house. He didn't really change his direction of what he was doing over that. I'm going to leave it here. I'm talked out. So that's it for tonight. I'm sorry it went so long. Next week we're dealing with Mars. Okay. Thanks. Bye.